everybody, welcome back to Crochet by Landry. Today in this video, I thought I would take you through and do a yearly market recap and go over how many markets I did this year, where they were or how far I had to drive, and also I'll give you a range of how much I spent on each market. And then I thought you'd just grab a cup of coffee and something to work on, and we can talk about my yearly market recap. So the first point I want to talk about for my yearly recap on how many markets I did, and I did about, I want to say about 16, maybe 17 markets this year, and I started doing them in May. I think the first one I did, I believe, was May 20th, and then I did one, and the last one I did actually conveniently was just Tuesday of this week. And that's it for me for this year. I kind of want to spend the rest of the season, rest of December and into the new year, spending time with my kids, doing, holiday things, going to see Santa, stuff like that. So I didn't want to be boggled up with having to do markets and stuff. And I've got young kids and they want to spend time with I want to spend time with them. So I did about 16 markets. I think that was more than enough for me. But again, that's just me. Everybody's different, so if you want to do more, then all the power to you. But I only did about 16. I think that was plenty for me. But that's the first point I want to talk about. Let's talk about the second one. So the second point I want to talk about is how much did I spend to get into each market. So the range of the prices for me, what I spent was, the lowest I spent was, I want to say $50 to get into a market. And then the highest I spent was the $300 to get into one of the markets that I got into this year. And that was about the range of the pricing, it was also dependent on where the market was, who was running it, and all that stuff. So it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was a good range of prices, and I learned a lot this year, but I wouldn't have gone any higher than $300, to be honest with you, because let's face it, who can afford more than that? Depending on, where you're going and what you're doing and what you're selling, more than even 300, we'd be pushing it to, but, if you're doing well at the markets you're doing at and you're spending more than that, but if you're making like 3 times the amount back, then fantastic. But, I used this year as a learning experience for myself, and learned what markets do and what ones not to do, because for me in particular, for the stuff that I sell, I didn't do as well depending on where I was. So that's what that is. But let's talk about the next point, which is point number 3, and that would be distance. How far I had to go depending on the market. Some of the markets were 15 minutes away by car, maybe even 10. And other ones were 45 minutes to an hour drive. And I thought maybe an hour would be more than fair for distance for me. Didn't want to drive more than an hour to get to a market, because you also have to factor in gas when you're traveling to a market, and how much gas it costs you to get there and back when you're done. Not just, set up time and take down time, but also gas, how to get there and where you're going. So, I would drive maybe 10 minutes down the road, or 45 minutes, out past where I live. But it all depend on where I was going. So I wouldn't drive more than an hour, at this point in my life to go to a market. I thought that would be more than fair as a ballpark figure for me. But hey, if you want to drive further, then great. It's totally up to you. If you want to do more than an hour drive to your market, then hey, that's great. I may venture out a little further, maybe next year, but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Next year is next year. We're not even done with this year yet. But I'm done with markets this year. But I thought I'd take you through and do a recap. But let's talk about point number 4. So I thought I'd talk about point number 4 would be what I liked about each market. Some of the ones we had great weather, was sunny if they were outside, when they were outside. If it wasn't too windy or rainy, then it was whatever. It rains, it's windy, it's windy. But some of them, the weather was fantastic. It was nice and sunny and beautiful out. It was hot. It was great. But then there were other ones where it was raining and it was windy, and then now you get into the winter season where it's cold and snowy outside, and you got to get from your car to the venue where your market is, and try not to drop your stuff in the snow or in the slush. But you know, it is what it is. When you're doing especially when you're doing outdoor markets, you're kind of rolling the dice, as it were, on what you're going to get for weather that day. You hope for nice weather, but then sometimes you get rain or you get wind. So I'd always prepare for the worst, which is rain. I'd always make sure if I was doing an outdoor market, I would bring my walls for my tent, you know, bring extra either dry clothes or just things to cover my stuff, or be able to protect my tent from the inside of my tent with my tables and stuff. So that way, if it was raining hard enough, that my stuff wouldn't get wet or damaged. Mind you, I make plushies, so worst case, I could just throw them in the dryer to dry, no big deal. Point number 5 is what I thought the cons were, the bad, not bad point, but the off-putting points for some of the markets I did. And the two big ones was location and traffic. So what I mean by location is where they put us in the market of whatever market I was doing. So some of them were in parking lots, some of them were in fields. So it all depends on being seen by the public, and being able to have people notice, hey, there's a market going on over there. Let's go check it out. Excuse me. And traffic was the right kind of people wanting to come in and look at your booth. So depending on what you sell, I sell plushies, but other people would sell jewelry, t-shirts, mugs, what else? Paintings, anything really. And it all depends on what people are looking for that day. So, you know, when you're looking for markets, it's best to making sure you're picking the right market for your stuff that you're making. My market I need, which jumps into point number 6 for me, would be what kind of markets should you be looking for depending on what you're making. If you're making jewelry, any kind of market will probably do for you. But I make plushies, so I need more of a market for family-friendly kind of environment where there's kids and parents and grandparents. That's the kind of markets I need, because that will be where I will do well enough. I don't really do well in, let's say, retirement living situations, but it is what it is. But it all depends on what you're making. If you're making jewelry or paintings, home decor, mugs and coffee cups and stuff like that, you know, any kind of market will do well. You won't know until you try. So I suggest trying as many different kinds of settings as you can. And then that way you know which ones you do well in and which ones you won't do well in. And then you can remember which ones you did well. I kept track on a spreadsheet that I made on my computer of which markets I went to, the location that we were in, all the time frame for setup, and what time the market was at, what I paid to get into the market, and then I broke it down from what I made. So I'd punch in how much I made, and then I'd break it down. And then I even wrote in a column for weather, what the weather was like, even if I was inside, what the weather was like outside. Because if you're inside, the weather still counts for the outside, because people need to go outside to get to where you are to come inside and look at the market. So I did a market on this past Sunday as well, and the market was in a hotel, and the weather was rainy, it was cold, there was a forecast for snow, so not a lot of people came out to check it out. We still had good traffic, I figured it would have been better if the weather wasn't so, yucky outside. But it is what it is. You can't really make the weather be nice. It is what it is when the weather comes. And then what I'm aiming for next year, for me, next year is more, I'm going to try and aim for more family-friendly markets for myself. But if that's not what's your cup of tea, let's say, then aim for the ones you want to aim for. It's all up to you. You're the one picking your markets. So I'm aiming for more family-friendly things just to make it a bit more geared towards what I make. So that's all I wanted to bring up today on how my markets went. I found that my markets went quite well this year, because I was really working on what my niche was and what I want to make. And I realized that making hats and scrubbies and keychains isn't really my thing. I'm more of a plushy oriented person. I like making toys and handmade dinosaurs and turtles and stuff. So that's what I like to make, and that's what I'm going to kind of stick to from now on. People can still ask me if I make hats, and I'm happy to make them if someone asks, but I'm not going to have that kind of stuff out on my table because it doesn't sell when I bring it to a market. But that's it for today. So don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button and the notification bell, and stay tuned next week for more crochet fun. And let me know in the comments down below if you want to see another tutorial maybe for Christmas. And if that's the case, then I'll plan to do one for next week. But don't forget, subscribe, and I will see you guys next week for more crochet fun. Bye, everybody.